This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Lily, and I'm 28 years old, a single mom to a 2-year-old boy named Ben, who's my entire world. I live in a small town called Millwood, the kind of place where everyone knows your business, whether you like it or not. I used to think I had a pretty normal life, working as a receptionist at the local clinic, raising Ben, trying to keep my head above water. But normal? That's a joke now. 2 weeks ago, I found out I have Huntington's disease, a death sentence that's been hiding in my DNA all along, and my parents knew about it the whole time. They lied to me, said my aunt died of cancer, not this. And now I'm sitting here, hands shaking, staring at a medical report that says my body's going to betray me bit by bit until there's nothing left. Worse, Ben might have it too, and they never warned me. I feel like someone's ripped my chest open and poured salt inside, a mix of rage and terror I can't shake. That's where this story starts. Me, broken and furious, about to turn my family upside down because I can't let this secret eat anyone else alive. It was a Tuesday when I got the diagnosis. I'd been having weird twitches in my hands for months, dropping things, feeling off, but I chalked it up to stress. Single mom life isn't exactly a picnic. Then the doctor sat me down, his face all serious, and said the words, Huntington's, degenerative, no cure. I remember the room spinning, my stomach dropping like I'd just stepped off a cliff. He asked if there was family history, and I said no, because that's what I'd been told. But something in his eyes made me push. I went home, called my dad, David, and asked him point blank about Aunt Jane. She died 3 years ago when I was overseas teaching English in Vietnam. They'd said it was cancer, but now I wasn't so sure. His voice got all shaky on the phone, dodging my questions like he always does when he's hiding something. Lily, calm down, he said. We'll talk when you come over. Calm down? I wanted to scream. So I drove to their house, Ben strapped in his car seat babbling about dinosaurs, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. My mom, Karen, opened the door, her face tight like she knew this was coming. I didn't even sit down, just stood there in their living room, the same one I'd grown up in, and demanded the truth. Did Aunt Jane have Huntington's? I asked, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Dad wouldn't look at me, just stared at the floor, his hands fidgeting with the edge of his sweater. Mom stepped in, her tone all soft and pleading. Lily, we didn't want you to live in fear. Yes, she had it, and your grandma too, but we thought... I cut her off. You thought what? That lying to me was better? That I didn't deserve to know my own kid could be at risk? My chest was heaving, tears stinging my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. That's when it hit me hardest. Ben, my sweet, goofy little boy who loves stacking blocks and chasing me around the kitchen. He's got a 50% chance of inheriting this nightmare, and they knew. They knew when I got pregnant, when I decided to keep him, when I spent every day building a life for us. You let me walk into this blind, I said, my voice cracking. I could have tested him, prepared, anything, and you took that from me. Mom's eyes filled with tears, and she reached for my arm, but I yanked it back. Don't, I snapped. You don't get to play the victim here. Then she said something I'll never forget, her voice barely a whisper. Would you rather not have been born than deal with this? It was like a punch to the gut. I froze, staring at her. This woman who'd raised me, who'd baked me cookies and kissed my scraped knees, now asking me that. Yes, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop it. Yes, I'd rather not have been born than live with this ticking time bomb you gave me. I left after that, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Ben was still in the car, giggling at some toy, and I sat there in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream, to cry, to hit something, but all I could do was breathe, in and out, until the rage settled into something cold and hard. They'd begged me not to tell my siblings, Alex, my older brother, and Sophie, my little sister. They don't need to know yet, Dad had said, like he still had any say in this, but I wasn't going to let them pull the same crap on anyone else. My siblings deserved the truth, even if it tore us all apart. The next day, I called Alex and Sophie and told them to meet me at Sophie's place. She lives in a little apartment downtown, all cozy with plants and thrift store furniture, the kind of place that usually calms me down. Not today. Alex got there first, his dark hair messy like he'd just rolled out of bed, which he probably had. He's 30, married to Lisa, and they've been trying for a baby for months. Sophie came in a minute later, 25 and quiet, her big brown eyes scanning my face like she could already tell something was wrong. I didn't waste time. "I have Huntington's," I said, the words tasting bitter. "It's hereditary, from Dad's side. You both need to get tested." The room went dead silent. Alex's face drained of color, and he sank onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. "What the hell, Lily? You're serious?" His voice was tight, like he was trying not to panic. Sophie just stared at me, her mouth open, then whispered, "They knew?" "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms to keep my hands from shaking. "They've known since Grandma, since Aunt Jane. They lied to us, said it was cancer. I only found out because I got diagnosed." Alex shot up, pacing now, his fists clenched. "Lisa and we're trying to have a kid. If I passed it on..." He stopped, his breath hitching, and I saw the fear crash over him like a wave. Sophie stayed quiet, but her eyes were wet, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. "I'll get tested," she said finally, her voice small. "But I don't even know what to say to them." Alex didn't hesitate. "I'm going over there right now," he growled, grabbing his keys. "They don't get to do this to us." He stormed out, and I knew he'd tear into them. Part of me wanted to stop him, to keep us together somehow, but the bigger part, the angry, betrayed part, wanted them to feel what I felt. Sophie hugged me before I left, her grip tight, and I could tell she was scared, maybe even mad, but she wasn't ready to face it yet. Driving home with Ben asleep in the back, I felt this weird mix of relief and guilt. I'd done the right thing, hadn't I? But it didn't feel good. It felt like I'd lit a match and watched it burn. Things got messy fast. Alex called me later that night, shouting so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "They're unbelievable, Lily." Dad wouldn't even admit it at first, just kept saying we're overreacting. Mom cried the whole time like that fixes anything. "I'm done with them." His voice was raw, frayed at the edges, and I could picture him pacing his living room, his broad shoulders hunched with fury. He and Lisa were getting tested the next day, and I could hear the panic seeping through his anger, the what-ifs piling up like storm clouds. "What if I've got it, Lily? What if I've already passed it to Lisa's baby and we don't even know it yet?" He choked on the words, and I didn't know what to say. I just gripped the phone tighter, my own fear mirroring his, a cold knot twisting in my gut. Sophie texted me instead. "I'm still processing, going to the doctor tomorrow, thanks for telling us." Short, clipped, like she was holding it all in behind a dam that might break any second. I stared at her message, imagining her curled up on her couch, those big brown eyes of hers staring into nothing, trying to make sense of the bomb I'd just dropped. My parents, though, they wouldn't let it go. Mom kept calling, her name lighting up my phone screen like a persistent ghost. I ignored it at first, letting the calls pile up, each one a little stab of guilt I didn't want to feel. When I finally caved and listened to the voicemails, it was the same old guilt trip, her voice trembling with that fake softness she uses when she's cornered. "Lily, we were protecting you. You didn't need to drag your siblings into this. We're still your family." Protecting me? I wanted to throw my phone across the room, watch it shatter against the wall like I felt inside. They weren't protecting me. They were protecting themselves from the shame of passing this curse down, from admitting they'd rolled the dice with our lives and lost. I deleted the message, my thumb hovering over the block button, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. Some stupid part of me still wanted to hear them out, even though every word they said felt like a lie. The next morning, I was a zombie, stumbling through my routine with Ben. He was chattering about his toy trucks, oblivious to the dark circles under my eyes or the way my hands shook when I poured his cereal. I kept replaying Alex's call, Sophie's text, Mom's voice, all of it looping in my head like a broken record. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Lisa, Alex's wife. She's this tiny, fierce woman with a pixie cut and a laugh that usually lights up a room, but today her voice was low, strained. "Lily, it's bad," she said, skipping any hello. "Alex didn't sleep. He's a mess. We're at the clinic now, waiting for his test. He keeps saying he's sorry, like it's his fault. I don't know how to fix this." I swallowed hard, picturing Alex sitting in some sterile waiting room, his leg bouncing like it always does when he's nervous. "You don't have to fix it, Lisa," I said, my voice hoarse. "Just be there. I'm sorry I dragged you into this." She sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion. "You didn't drag us in. Your parents did. I just hope he's negative, you know, for him, for us." I hung up, feeling like the ground was shifting under me. Ben tugged at my sleeve, asking for more milk, and I forced a smile, ruffling his hair. "Sure, buddy," I said, but my mind was miles away. I needed to get out, clear my head, so I called my friend Tina, who works at the clinic with me. She's older, maybe 45, with a no-nonsense vibe and a habit of calling me kid, even though I'm not that young. "Meet me at the diner," I texted. "Need to talk." She replied with a thumbs up, and an hour later, we were sitting in a cracked vinyl booth at Millwood's Only Greasy Spoon, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease thick in the air. Tina slid into the seat across from me, her short gray hair sticking up like she'd just run her hands through it. "You look like hell, kid," she said, blunt as always, sipping her coffee. I laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "Yeah, well, I feel like it too." I told her everything, the diagnosis, my parents' lies, Alex and Sophie, all of it spilling out like I'd pulled a plug. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes narrowed when I got to the part about Ben. "They didn't tell you about your kid?" she said, setting her mug down hard. "That's not protection, Lily. That's cowardice." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know. I don't know what to do now. Alex is losing it, Sophie's shutting down, and I'm scared to test Ben. What if he's got it too?" Tina leaned forward, her voice firm. "You test him. You face it. You don't get to hide like they did. And if he's got it, you fight like hell for him. That's what moms do." Her words stuck with me, sharp and steadying, like a lifeline in the chaos. I was about to thank her when the diner door swung open, and in walked Chaz, my old college buddy, lugging a bag of what looked like kids' toys. He spotted me and grinned, that big, goofy smile of his cutting through the gloom. "Lily, Tina, my favorite ladies," he said, dropping into the booth next to me without asking. Tina rolled her eyes. "You're a menace, Chaz," she said, but there was a smirk tugging at her lips. He shrugged, digging into his bag and pulling out a water pistol. "Just dropping off some stuff for Max's preschool fundraiser. You okay, Lil? You've got that world's-ending face on." I hesitated, then gave him the short version, Huntington's, parents, siblings. His grin faded, and he leaned back, whistling low. "Damn, that's heavy. Your folks really pulled that crap?" I nodded, and he shook his head. "You need a distraction. Come to Tom and Laura's engagement party tomorrow night. Bring Ben if you want, it'll be good for you." I wasn't sure, but Tina nudged me under the table. "Go," she said. "You can't sit around drowning in this forever." So I agreed, figuring a night out might stop me from spiraling. Big mistake. The party was at Tom's place, a sprawling backyard lit up with fairy lights, music thumping, people laughing. I left Ben with a sitter, needing a break from being mom for just a few hours. Chaz was there, hauling stuff from his car as usual, and I waved, trying to shake off the weight on my chest. Then he shouted across the yard to Emma, this girl we knew from college who's always late and perpetually frazzled. "Hey, Emma, grab my wife and kid, but make sure it's my kid, not some random look-alike." He laughed, loud and careless, and I smirked, remembering his pool story. But Emma didn't laugh. She went stiff, her curly hair bouncing as she turned, and her husband Mike stepped forward, his face dark. "What's that supposed to mean, Chaz?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. Chaz blinked, thrown off. Just a joke, man. You know, from that time at the pool." Mike cut him off, closing the distance between them. "A joke? You think I'm stupid? You and her got something to say?" Emma grabbed his arm, panic flashing in her eyes. "Mike, stop. He didn't mean—" But Mike shook her off, his fists clenched. "Don't lie to me, Emma. I've heard this crap before." The party hushed, heads turning, and I stepped in, my own nerves frayed but trying to keep the peace. "Hey, Mike, chill. It's nothing. Just Chaz being Chaz." But Emma spun on me, her voice shrill. "Nothing? His stupid mouth wrecked my life, Lily. Mike thinks I cheated because of that damn joke." Mike stormed off, Emma trailing after him, yelling something I couldn't catch. Chaz stood there dumbfounded, his hands still raised like he could rewind the moment. "What the hell just happened?" he muttered. I dragged him to the side, away from the gawking crowd. "Explain," I said, crossing my arms. He sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "Okay, so a while back, me, Lisa, and Max were at the pool. Emma showed up, saw this kid who kind of looked like me, and said it was cute. We laughed. Then a few months ago, I made the same dumb joke in front of Mike, and he flipped. Emma said it's because his cousin cheated, had a kid, big family mess. He thought she was hinting at something. They split after that, and she blames me." I stared at him, incredulous. "And you didn't think to shut up about it tonight?" He groaned. "I didn't know he'd be here, Lily. I thought it was funny." The night unraveled from there. I stayed long enough to congratulate Tom and Laura, but the mood was shot, and I left feeling worse than when I'd arrived. The next day, I was still reeling when Sophie called. "I'm negative," she said, her voice flat but relieved. "Alex isn't. He's positive. Him and Lisa are a wreck." My stomach dropped, a fresh wave of guilt crashing over me. "He mad at me?" I asked, dreading the answer. "No," she said. "He's mad at them. We both are. I'm done talking to Mom and Dad, too." I let out a shaky breath, torn between relief for her and pain for him. "I'm getting Ben tested," I told her. "I can't wait anymore." She paused, then said, "Good. Let me know, okay?" I promised I would, hanging up with a heaviness I couldn't shake. Then Chaz called, his voice tight. "Emma showed up at my house this morning, Lily. 7 a.m., freaking out. Said she's been in love with me since college, that Mike knew, that she used me to mess with him. She even told people we had an affair to get revenge. I didn't sign up for this." I could hear the shock in his words, the betrayal, and I felt a pang of sympathy. "What'd you do?" I asked. "Told her we're done," he said. "I can't trust her after that. But now I'm paranoid. Who else thinks I'm some homewrecker?" I didn't have an answer, just a tired, "People suck sometimes, Chaz." A few days later, I took Ben to the clinic. Tina was there, giving me a quick nod as the nurse drew his blood. He cried, clinging to me, his little hands gripping my shirt like I was his lifeline, and I held him tight, whispering it'd be okay, even though every word felt like a lie I didn't believe. His sobs echoed in my ears, sharp and piercing, and I forced a smile, brushing his hair back, trying to keep my own tears from spilling over. Tina watched from the corner, her face steady but her eyes soft, and I knew she saw right through me. The wait for results was torture. Every phone ring made my heart jump, a jolt of dread shooting through me like lightning. Every quiet moment stretched too long, filled with this gnawing fear that wouldn't let go. I kept busy, cleaning the house, playing with Ben, anything to drown out the noise in my head, but it didn't work. My parents' calls kept coming, their voicemails piling up, Mom's pleading, Dad's gruff insistence to talk as a family. I deleted them all, my finger hovering over the block button again, but something held me back, some stupid thread of hope I couldn't cut. Then one night, there was a knock at my door. It was late, past 9, and Ben was asleep upstairs, his soft snores drifting down through the baby monitor. I froze, my hand on the knob, peering through the peephole. It was Dad, standing there in the rain, his coat soaked through, water dripping off the brim of his old baseball cap. His face was lined with something that looked like regret. His shoulders slumped like the weight of the world had finally caught up to him. "Lily," he said, his voice rough, scratched raw by the cold or maybe something else. "We need to talk, please." I stood in the doorway, the warm light of my living room spilling out onto the wet porch, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't know what to say. My anger was still there, simmering, but seeing him like that, small, drenched, broken, stirred something else, a pang I didn't want to name. "What do you want, Dad?" I asked, my voice flat, arms crossed tight across my chest like a shield. He stepped closer, the rain tapping a steady rhythm on the awning above us. "I know we messed up," he said, his eyes meeting mine for the first time since this all started. "We should have told you. I couldn't face it. Your grandma, Jane, it killed me watching them fade. I thought if we didn't say it, it wouldn't touch you." His voice cracked, and he looked away, wiping at his face with a shaky hand. Rain or tears, I couldn't tell. I wanted to believe him, wanted to feel that old comfort of his presence, but all I could see was Ben's face, the test looming over us like a guillotine. "You don't get it," I said, my throat tight. "This isn't about you facing it. It's about me, Alex, Sophie, Ben. You took our choices away." He flinched like I'd hit him, and for a second I felt a flicker of guilt. Then he said, "I'm getting tested too, Lily. Tomorrow. I need to know. For you. For all of you." That stopped me cold. I stared at him, the rain filling the silence, my mind racing. If he had it, it'd explain everything. The lies, the fear. If he didn't, it'd mean he'd just been too weak to tell us the truth. Either way, it didn't erase the damage. "Why now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Because I'm losing you. All of you. Alex won't even look at me. Sophie won't answer. And you, Lily, you're my girl. I can't lose you too. His eyes were wet now, pleading, and I felt my resolve waver just for a moment. Before I could answer, headlights cut through the dark, and a car pulled up behind Dad's truck. The door slammed, and out stepped Alex, his face a storm of fury. Lisa trailed behind him, her arms wrapped around herself, looking exhausted. "What the hell are you doing here?" Alex barked, striding up the steps, his boots splashing in the puddles. Dad turned, startled, and held up his hands. "Alex, I just want to—" Alex cut him off, his voice shaking with rage. "No! You don't get to show up and play sorry now. You knew, Dad. You knew, and you let me think I could have a family without this hanging over me." Lisa grabbed his arm, whispering, "Alex, please." But he shook her off, stepping closer to Dad until they were inches apart. I moved between them, my heart pounding. "Stop it, both of you," I shouted, my voice cracking through the rain. "This isn't helping anyone." Alex glared at me, his chest heaving, then back at Dad. "He doesn't deserve your forgiveness, Lily. He's positive. He told me today. He's had symptoms for months and didn't say a damn word." My breath caught, a sharp, icy stab in my chest. I turned to Dad, searching his face. "Is that true?" I asked, barely audible over the downpour. He didn't answer at first, just looked down, his silence louder than any confession. Then he nodded, slow and heavy. "I didn't want to believe it," he mumbled. "I thought I could outrun it." Something snapped inside me. Not anger this time, but a deep, aching sadness. I stepped back, my hands trembling. "Get out," I said, my voice steady despite the tears burning my eyes. "Go home, Dad. Don't come back until you figure out how to live with this, because I'm done carrying it for you." He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, but Alex grabbed his shoulder, shoving him toward the truck. "She said leave," Alex growled, and Dad stumbled back, his face crumpling as he climbed in and drove off, taillights fading into the rain. Alex turned to me, his anger softening into something raw. "I'm sorry, Lily," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to. I just can't deal with him." I nodded, pulling him into a hug, feeling Lisa's arms wrap around us both. We stood there soaked and shivering, but together, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny spark of strength flicker inside me. "We'll figure it out," I whispered, more to myself than them. "We have to." The next day, the clinic called. I was in the kitchen, Ben stacking blocks at my feet when the phone rang. My hands shook as I answered, Tina's voice on the other end steady but gentle. "Lily, it's about Ben. He's negative. He's clear." Relief crashed over me like a tidal wave, so strong I had to grab the counter to stay upright. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and fast, and I dropped to my knees, pulling Ben into my arms. He giggled, squirming, and I laughed through the sobs, kissing his messy hair. "You're okay, baby," I said, over and over, the weight lifting just enough to let me breathe. I called Sophie first, then Alex, and we cried together over the phone, a messy, cathartic release. Ben was safe. That was enough for now. But it wasn't over. Dad's test came back positive, and Mom called me a week later, her voice hollow. "He's falling apart, Lily," she said. "He won't eat, won't talk. I don't know what to do." I listened, my heart aching, but I didn't soften. "He made his choices, Mom," I said. "So did you. I'm not ready to fix this for you." I hung up, staring at the phone, feeling the sting of their pain, but knowing I had to protect myself, protect Ben. They'd built their lives on a lie, and now they were crumbling under it, alone in that big, quiet house with no one left to pretend for. Chaz's mess didn't help my mood. He called me a few days after the clinic, sounding like a kicked puppy. "Emma's telling everyone I stalked her," he said, his voice tight. "Mike's threatening to come after me, and half our friends won't even text me back. I didn't do anything, Lily." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I know, Chaz. She's spinning her own story. Just let it burn out. The truth sticks around longer than lies." He didn't sound convinced, but I couldn't carry his weight too. Emma had dug her own grave, and Mike was sinking with her. Two people drowning in their own mistrust, while Chaz dodged the fallout as best he could. Weeks later, I sat on my porch, Ben asleep inside, the night quiet except for the crickets. I'd gone low contact with my parents for good, their calls unanswered, their guilt theirs to bear. Alex and Lisa were starting therapy, trying to navigate his diagnosis. Sophie was healing, slowly, her texts longer now, warmer. I had Bean's future ahead of me, clear and bright, even if mine was fading. It wasn't perfect. Huntington still loomed over me, a shadow I couldn't outrun, but I'd faced it. I'd chosen truth, messy and brutal as it was, and it had set me free in a way my parents never could. So here's the thing. Secrets don't save you. They fester, they rot, they tear everything down when you least expect it. My parents thought they were shielding us, but they just built a cage. Emma thought her lies would fix her pain, and now she's got nothing left. Me? I'm still standing, still fighting, because I had to. What about you? Ever had a secret blow up in your face? Or maybe you're the one holding it together when everyone else falls apart? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Hit that subscribe button too, because life's too wild to miss the next one.